Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're bridging the gap between your standard textbook research methodology and something incredibly cool, an interactive AI simulation that actually stress tests your academic proposals. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of designing a rigorous research study, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We aren't just going to talk about theory today, we're going to dive into how conversational AI is being used as a high-stakes flight simulator for your methodology chapter.
We'll be anchoring our whole exploration today in the authoritative 6th edition of Cresswell and Cresswell's Research Design Framework. If you spend any time in academia, you definitely recognize this cover. It's literally the gold standard for methodology, laying out the exact rules for qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods approaches. Everything we're unpacking today, including the AI simulation parameters we'll get into, is strictly grounded right here in this text.
Okay, here's our roadmap. 1. The mixed methods advantage. 2. 3 core research designs. 3. Integrating 2 data worlds. 4. Enter the AI simulation. 5. Surviving the active grid. And finally, 6. Final audits and evaluation. Let's get into it. Section 1. The mixed methods advantage. Let's set the stage by looking back at why mixed methods even originated in the 1980s. It's often called the third methodological movement, and it really emerged because researchers started realizing that single method approaches sometimes leave massive, glaring blind spots in complex studies. Think about the fundamental divide here. On one side, we have qualitative data. These are your open-ended questions where you don't restrict the response, which generates incredibly rich contextual insights. Then, on the other side, we have quantitative data. These are your closed-ended metrics with strict response options, perfect for hard statistical analysis. Mixed methods is all about combining these two worlds to gain a fully uncompromised understanding of your research problem. And that brings us to the ultimate goal of mixed methods, generating what Cresswell calls meta-inferences. Now, a meta-inference isn't just a basic summary. It's a deep, composite conclusion that you can only possibly reach by physically integrating and comparing both those open-ended qualitative themes and your closed-ended quantitative stats. You're basically creating something entirely new from synthesizing the two. Section 2. 3 core research designs. So how do we actually structure all this into a formal plan? Because you definitely can't just collect a bunch of random numbers and interviews and smash them together. It requires real intent. There are 3 core designs you absolutely need to know. First up is convergent. That's where you collect both types of data at the exact same time and merge them to compare the results. Second is explanatory sequential. Here, your quantitative stats come first, and you use qualitative data to actually explain those numbers. Finally, exploratory sequential is the exact reverse. You use qualitative interviews to build and test a brand new quantitative instrument. Let's look a little closer at that explanatory sequential design. Notice how it operates in very distinct phases. Your initial, rigorous quantitative sampling actually dictates exactly who you purposefully sample for your follow-up qualitative phase. The whole intent is to follow up on the hard data with incredibly in-depth, targeted human information. Section 3. Integrating 2 data worlds. The crucial point to remember here is that simply collecting these 2 different types of data is really only half the battle. If you just keep them separate in your final report, well, you haven't actually done a mixed methods study. The real magic, and frankly the hardest part of the whole process, happens during integration. To pull off that integration, researchers rely on a tool called a joint display. This is a literal, visual, side-by-side table or graph. It forces you to physically merge qualitative codes and themes right next to your quantitative statistical results to see if they confirm or disconfirm each other. It is the visual engine of those meta-inferences we talked about. But here is the massive elephant in the room. We're talking about multi-year projects here, often requiring substantial funding and really complex logistics. The risk involved in launching unverified research is huge. So, how on earth do you test a complex design before you face real-world institutional review boards, or IRBs, and potentially waste years of your life on a totally flawed methodology? Section 4. Enter the AI simulation. The answer to that massive risk brings us to the second half of our explainer. Look, you wouldn't fly a commercial plane without spending hours in a flight simulator first, right? Well, you shouldn't launch a thesis without entering the AI Methodological Research Design Sandbox. It's a fully interactive environment designed to dynamically test your project. When you initialize this AI sandbox, the system freezes at what's called turn zero. Before the environment unfreezes and the simulation actually kicks off, you have to pass a context-binding check. You explicitly declare your core research question, your philosophical worldview, like, say, post-positivism or social constructivism, and your exact Cresswell framework. This ensures the AI is auditing your specific study, not just spitting out generic concepts. Section 5, Surviving the Active Grid. Once you're initialized, you leave that setup phase and enter the active multi-layer loop. And let me tell you, this is where it gets intense. The conversational AI stops being a passive tool and suddenly acts as an adaptive advisor, actively throwing real-time methodological friction right your way. The Phase 2 Active Simulation Grid Blueprint reveals exactly how the AI processes your inputs behind the scenes. Instead of just a casual chat, the engine is processing your environment across 3 separate layers at the exact same time during every single turn. You have to successfully navigate all 3 if you want to advance. In Layer 1, the compass, the AI dynamically updates your situation. It literally reads your study topic and simulates real-world pushback. You might suddenly face IRB resistance, totally unexpected variations in your data collection, or intense stakeholder pressure. It makes the academic theory feel startlingly real. Simultaneously, in Layer 2, the warning system intentionally models methodological drift. The engine will just drop validity threats directly into your lap, things like history, maturation, or participant attrition. Or, if you're running that explanatory sequential design, it might throw a sample matching trap at you just to see if your design survives the friction. And finally, in Layer 3, the brain, the system just halts. It anchors your workspace and demands that you scientifically defend your choices. You'll get hit with 3 to 5 targeted, open-ended questions based entirely on the crisis happening in Layers 1 and 2. The absolute golden rule here: you cannot break character. You have to rely on deliberate, planned professional strategies to answer. Section 6, Final Audits and Evaluation. Surviving the grid term after turn requires total saturation of the prompt, meaning you have to answer every single question completely. But how do you actually finish the simulation and prove your design holds water? Well, at the end of every round, you hit a gatekeeper check. The AI gives you feedback on your framework alignment, marks your milestone, and generates a save progress code block. You actually have to copy this text tracking block into a separate document. It's a brilliant protocol because it ensures your specific variables and history are saved. So if your browser crashes, no problem. You can instantly reload your exact simulation state. When you finally reach your configured turn limit, say you set it to round 10 or 15, the sandbox triggers its closing evaluation. If you ran scenario 12, the qualitative track, the AI demands an open coding audit to check your triangulation controls. But if you ran scenario 14, the mixed methods track, you face the ultimate trial, the joint display assembly mandate. Tying right back to the core theory we discussed earlier, the AI forces you to prove you can actually integrate. You have to explicitly map the qualitative themes you've defended throughout the whole simulation right next to your quantitative data runs inside a unified matrix block. It absolutely ensures you truly understand how to synthesize 2 distinct data worlds into those powerful meta-inferences. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a critical question to chew on. Before you lock in that methodology chapter, and definitely before you submit anything to the review board, ask yourself, is your research genuinely ready for the friction of the real world without a rigorous AI simulation run? The tools exist to stress test your ideas today, ensuring your research stands strong tomorrow. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into mixed methods and AI sandboxes. Keep questioning and keep learning.